Don't edit out this part, the Barcelona part. Represent.
Hi, I was going to check with you for live. You can see me? We are officially live. Okay. Okay. Great. Okay. So I don't know how good the sound is going to be when people are talking, but I'm hoping. Behind me here is about, I'd say, 6 feet. Okay. Well, love showed up. Yeah, like Jim, my friend Steve, Dee Dee, my lady who I went to high school with, my friend Ruben, my cousins have finally arrived. So, okay. Great. Okay. Hi, world. Okay, thank you. So we're not with the live stream stuff. So that's good. Say hi. We have the live stream. We have the live stream. Well, if you guys want anything to eat before we start, there's sandwiches and stuff out there. Yes.
That's live, by the way. There's lots of people looking at that right now. Say hi. We're going to start our program soon, okay? So I need to close WhatsApp. I've turned off WhatsApp. That should be okay. Send me a text and see if it comes through. Yep. Meeting my daughters this week. Notifications. Okay, let me step back for just a second. Notifications. Do not disturb is on now. And notifications are off. Send me a WhatsApp, see if it pops up. It should do. All right, guys, let's give everyone a chance to watch. Okay, come back.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Hello, hello. We're going to get started in 2 minutes. So get a drink, get some food, get a seat. There's some comfy seats up front for those who want some. We'll start in a couple minutes. Thank you.
Hello? Good afternoon. Can everyone start taking some seats so we can kind of get the fun part started? And I'm going to use this is my cousin Ian. He's going to be our master of ceremonies today. And I'll hand it over to Ian. Oh, I'm Britt. For those that don't know me, I'm his second daughter, and this is his first daughter. You'll hear from us later.
All right, guys. We'll try to balance the sound. It seems like the sound is up, so that's good. All right, cool. Hi, Solène. This is my daughter, Solène, and the great irony is we say this a lot, Solène. And I think it's pretty fitting. She's right at my feet right now. Thanks. So a couple months ago, I was at Cactus Cantina, where we go a lot for family dinners. And I get to the host stand and I said, we got a pretty big party here. I was going to meet Len, Eleanor, my family, my parents. And I said, I'm here early. Do you mind if I take a seat now? And they said, yeah, that's fine. We'll walk you to your table. Okay, guys, you can't pull on the cord, but you can be cute. You're really good at that. So she walks me around the long outside patio down Macomb of Cactus Cantina. By the time I got to my table, I said to myself, okay, I know her name, I know she loves soccer, I know she plays soccer, and I know what position she plays. And I sat down and I said to myself, oh my God, I'm Len. If anyone here has ever had lunch or dinner or coffee with Len, that's what he did. He got to know the servers. He got to know if they loved soccer. If they did, he would size them up and say, I think you are a midfielder. So that tradition carries on. Thanks everyone for being here. This is quite the reunion of people from various facets of Len's life. I'm Ian, I'm his nephew. I knew him, of course, as a family member, but I also knew him as a soccer guy. And it's beautiful to see so many states, so many countries represented in one place to celebrate a really amazing life. So I'm going to be the MC. I have a few things I'm going to say in a minute, but for now I'm going to turn it over to my amazing cousins, Erica and Britt.
Don't clap. Britt and I are charged with welcoming you all, and I've been able to talk to many of you. Hopefully, before you leave, you can come say hi when we're done with this. I really want to see each and every one of you. Welcome. We're so glad you made the trip. We are thrilled, I think, mostly about the stories that you all tell. We have our own stories, but all of you have a different experience with him. And we do have paper in the back. If you have a story you want to share, or either put it in the book or put it in the jar, or email me later. We really are going to cherish those stories because that was a part of him that you all knew that we didn't necessarily. So on that note, I'm going to talk for a few minutes about my dad that don't really relate to soccer because I was not the soccer player. And I'm going to kind of read it because I have a lot. That would be you. We'll get to that. So I could tell you stories all day, as you can imagine, but I'm going to focus on sides of him that others might not know. Growing up, he was larger than life for us. He was the fun dad, which was really not Mom's favorite side of him. Growing up, he would work long hours and come home, and then he'd play with us until we were silly and wired, and that just pissed Mom off no end. We knew he was the boss at work, the boss, and he walked home from work a lot. That was so one of his points of pride. He'd walk home from Farragut North often. We really loved visiting him at the office. Britt and I would go play with the Xerox machine, and we would play with the intercom. We played boss and secretary. We'd switch off who was who at any given time. Could you please come in here? I need you to take a memo. And it was just fun being part of his world at any age. He loved his cats. I don't know how many of you guys know that about him. He would leave a chair at the table at Thanksgiving for the cat to sit at. But he would kind of play it off like he wasn't really crazy about the cats, but he really was the one who took most care of them. I was really shy as a kid and as a teenager, and I was always in awe, as Ian said, of his ability to talk to anyone. I mean, anyone, the bus driver or the CEO or the college president. He just could talk to anyone. And, Ian hinted at the shtick. He had the shtick. So where are you from? Oh, Tucson. All right, they play a lot of soccer there. Did you play soccer? And then, if the answer was yes, obviously the conversation went on from there. If the answer was no, he'd find a way to make a conversation. Oh, what other sports did you play? Oh, I know something about this city. What do you like about it? And he could just talk to anybody. And he, as Ian said, he had this thing where he could tell what position you played based on your body language. I see people nodding. Yeah, he would look at you and he'd say, "You were a midfield, weren't you?" And they'd say, "How did you know?" And I saw him do this thousands of times, and he was probably right. I would say 80% of the time. There's an article in one of the books there where someone actually wrote about this thing that he did. It was kind of cool to see somebody else had noticed it. So he didn't actually set out to be a feminist, I don't think, but or be on the cutting edge of Title IX. But he had two girls, and he loved sports, so it was natural. He taught us to play soccer, obviously. He taught us to play football. We know the rules. He taught us to play baseball. I know how to swing a bat. And he taught us basketball, and he also made opportunities for us to play, bitty basketball and opportunities for us to play baseball and softball. And so that was, something that he gave us girls, but also everywhere. Girls everywhere, are benefiting from this worldview that girls can play soccer too. I quit soccer when I was 12. I wanted to take an acting class, and it conflicted with soccer practice. I wasn't really great at soccer, so Britt was brilliant at it. And I'm like, yeah, you go be that kid. And so I bowed out. And he used to tell people, he was sort of momentarily disappointed, but then he was super proud of me and supportive of the choices that I made. And he always used to tell people, yeah, she was my sweeper. She was so good. She got a standing ovation her last game. Never mind, it was a sideline at Stoddard. Everybody was already standing. I remember watching him play a little bit as an adult in the adult leagues and just being proud that he was in his 50s and still playing with the 30-year-olds. Hey, that's my dad out there. And I remember going to RFK with him, and we would walk up to the window and buy tickets. I remember getting tickets to see the Cosmos play where RFK was full because Pele was there. And he was like, "I played against Pele." And we were up in the nosebleeds. I could look out at the parking lot from our seats. I'd never been up that high before. But those are the experiences he gave us. Over the years, we got to go to a lot of international games and have that experience of being at an international soccer game. And that's something now I can pass on to my children because he gave that to us. He adored his grandchildren. When my oldest was born, I said, "Mom, Dad, don't come right away. We've got a lot going on." And Len was not gonna work for him. So I got home from the hospital an hour later, 2 days in the hospital. I got home from the hospital an hour later. My dad and my mom pull up in front of my house. I just had a baby, and I'm like, "Oh, hi. Okay, here's your grandkid." He was thrilled. He was thrilled to be a grandfather. He wouldn't let my kids call him grandfather. He thought that made him feel old, so he agreed to let them call him coach. And so he called my children to the end, called him coach, and he loved that. He really loved that. That was his personality. I was really proud of him for being a Hall of Fame inductee. I loved going to events where he got to play that role and be the bigwig. That kind of made me feel really special that he had that in his life. But there's a few more things. The dad I know wasn't all about soccer. He was a hustler. When he left the government in 1981, he applied for a handful of jobs in higher education. He would have made a really good college president, I think. But when that didn't pan out, he really found a way to make ends meet and as a consultant and still pay for club soccer, pay for vacations, and pay for college. He lobbied tirelessly for his ideas. Some were really great, like his vocal support for building a stadium in the city of Washington, not outside in the suburbs. And some not so great, like his efforts to advocate for certain types of goals to count for more in order to make the game more palatable to an American audience. Those fell on deaf ears. The dad I knew valued community. He was famous for remembering names and faces. He was a loyal customer everywhere he went and would go back to the same shops and restaurants and even the same hotels year after year. He always talked about the people in those shops as if they were old friends, and he would lament when one went out of business and moved and he had to start from scratch. He was also that guy that doesn't just write letters to complain, but took the extra effort to get a guy's name and make sure a letter got to his manager when someone went out of their way to be helpful. The dad I knew was a doer and a fixer. He hated to throw things out, and he would fix them long past when the rest of us would have given in and bought a new chair. He had his team of Brazilian mechanics fixing his old '64 Plymouth Fury with the push-button gears until the bottom finally rusted out in the early '80s. Growing up poor in the Depression does that to you, but I think it was more than that. I think he felt a special loyalty to the objects that served him, as well as the people, like the old office chair he guy-wired together. He also knew how to organize big projects and get hard things done. When I was in graduate school in my mid-20s and living in Boston, I took a trip to DC and was planning to fly from there out of Dulles to visit my host family in Austria. We had a lovely visit, and I was all packed and ready, and almost as an offhand comment, he's like, "Hey, you have your passport?" I froze. My passport was in Boston. I was in Washington. After a string of expletives left my mouth at top volume, he said, "Let me see what I can do," and he disappeared. I couldn't imagine how this could possibly be fixed. I saw the visions of my trip being canceled. And my passport was 500 miles away in Boston. No one was there to even mail it to me. An hour later, he came downstairs. Still to this day, I don't know how he did it or how he paid for it. It was like a miracle. He said, "Okay, I've canceled your flight from Dulles tomorrow afternoon, and you're booked on a 9 a.m. flight to Boston. Then you have a 2 p.m. flight from Logan to JFK. That will connect to your 7 p.m. flight to Vienna tomorrow night." Solved. He did it. I just had to get on the T and get home to my apartment and get my passport back to the airport. The dad I knew was also a thinker. He took inspiration from philosophers and leaders, and over the years, working out of his office in the attic, he had amassed a whole wall of quotes on curling yellowed paper. He would send me quotes he cut out of newspapers and articles, so many articles over the years. It used to annoy me when I was younger, but over the years, I realized that was his love language. When he clipped an article for me and scrawled "interesting" or "format" or "show this to the girls" on it, it meant the article reminded him of us, and he missed us, and he was thinking of us. Every letter was a cover to a packet of stuff and started with, "Hi folks, I've collected some things I think you'll be interested in." Words mattered to him. At my wedding, he took his father of the bride duties very seriously. He didn't smile until after his speech was done. He talked for 20 minutes. Some of you remember. We clocked it. 20 minutes of speech, and I'm in that vein here tonight. And he started every sentence with, "I'd like to recognize," because he just wanted everybody to feel like they were part of it and understand that he was grateful for the help that he'd gotten. He also wrote really cheesy poems. Some of you know that about him. I've included some in those albums, so if you can read his handwriting. The poems were amazing and terrible at the same time. "Ode to Allison on her 9th birthday," or "Ode to Madeline Walking." He read one of his poems at the Soccer Hall of Fame induction. Some of you know that. It did actually later get published. And I finally found a copy that's also in the photo albums. Dad, he was ultimately kind of old school. He came from a time when men went off to work, women stayed home and took care of kids and cooking. But despite that, he was a good girl dad. And he let me be who I wanted to be. And even when I didn't play soccer anymore, he was proud of the decisions that I made and of me, going to Austria and deferring college. He was very supportive of all these kind of unusual choices and then moving away. He didn't love that I lived in Boston, but he was proud of the career that I've built and the family that I've created there. And his absence will leave a huge hole in our lives. Thank you.
She's a tough act to follow, but since I was number 2, I've always followed her. So, except on the soccer field. Yeah, I didn't tend to wait around for you to those. So, I'm going to try to keep myself together on this one. Just good afternoon. Thank everyone for coming. I know lots of people have come from lots further away than I have, and it's been brilliant to see so many old friends and family and faces and everybody here to come out and say hi and pay their respects. And what a collection of memorabilia. Have you ever met someone that scrapbooked that much? Because, I'm looking at it going, where was all that stuff? So anyway, I just wanted to thank you for coming. My dad would have loved to have been here and seen his soccer community, family, colleagues, and friends all together. And knowing that there is a USA match to watch later, be excited for that. I'm excited too. Some of you don't know I'm British and American, so I have divided loyalties, but I'll go USA today. It's always a tiered system in choosing, and USA always wins, and then England comes in second. So everyone in this room knows Len Aller. Some know him as coach, some as a colleague, a mentor, a brother, an uncle, a friend, or even one person, husband. Only 2 of us, though, called him Dad. Dad was there from the first moment I was born. He actually delivered me. I was a bit eager to get on with it and get out there, so a bit early, and I'll blame the 4th of July and the early fireworks for getting me excited to meet our world. Dad delivered me in the back seat of our 1964 Plymouth Fury at the corner of 34th Street and Massachusetts Avenue. From that very start, he was always the steady, capable hands that guided me through life. He wasn't just soccer that Dad was good at. He seemed to be able to fix, mend, or sort anything. His workbench in the basement was always full of projects. Between Dad doing the woodworking and Mom doing the building and painting, they even made our dollhouse from an old school cupboard. I remember just going down into the basement and watching him at the tool bench with all the jars of different sized nails screwed conveniently into the ceiling beams above his head. Also in the basement was our ping pong table. Dad taught us to play ping pong and darts. We spent hours down there playing and learning his wicked topspin. He always said to play before a soccer game as it helped your eye-hand coordination. I don't think I ever beat him. He was competitive and didn't think that letting us win would be helpful. We just needed to get better, practice more, and keep playing. I think the most heated games, though, were between Dad and Uncle Jimmy. They had years of playing each other and knew each other's favorite shots and timings. But no matter who won those, I think it was pretty equal. They always laughed and enjoyed themselves. The whole point of playing was to have fun. Dad was also the one that took my sister and I Saturdays to learn to ice skate. He took the adult class while we slid around in the kids' classes. He didn't want to just sit and watch. He wanted to participate and learn. Lifelong learning was always his mantra. To keep learning and doing new things, he decided one winter to take our newfound skating interests with the weather cold enough and our patio that he had made. By the way, he did brick the whole patio in with a nice herringbone brick. He built us our own ice rink. We had fun until I decided to take my skate and put the end of it through Erica's hand when we were lacing up. Sorry, Erica, no more ice skating rink at home after that. He decided to stick to sports he knew a bit more about, soccer and baseball. I don't remember my first organized soccer practice or game. I do remember going to RFK from the time I can first remember and watching. In those days, it was Diplomats, or the odd international match that came through. We went so much, and I was very upset when they were having difficulties, that I wrote an essay that he framed and put on his wall entitled, "If I Had $1 Million, I Would Buy the Diplomats soccer team so they could stay in DC." Sadly, my fantasy $1 million didn't help. But I learned all the famous players of the day from Dad and all their countries and styles of play. My soccer education had begun. Now to start playing myself. A new local league was forming, Stoddard Soccer. Dad signed up Eric and I to play, and he was going to start coaching. From the beginning, he called us the Rangers. I never knew why until later when I realized my grandfather was from Motherwell in Scotland and a Rangers fan. To this day, I'm a Rangers fan, never Celtic. As the team got better, he realized that he could get his national coaching licenses due to having played on the national team. So he then started learning formally about coaching. I played on teams that he coached until I was 16 and was on the first travel team for Stoddard, still playing on the boys' team as we didn't have girls' teams then. One of my most formative experience, father-daughter time together, was when he thought it would be a good idea to get our referees' licenses. There still aren't enough female referees, and at that time there were almost none. On evenings of class, we'd drive out to Silver Spring. He would have me drive there and back, as I was just learning how to drive. He would almost patiently sit and help me with what I may have been doing wrong without letting me know how nervous he was sitting in the passenger seat and not being able to control the car. Now, those of you who have been in a car with Len know that he likes to be the one driving. And if he's not driving, he will tell you where to go, how fast to go, which lane to in, and especially back from RFK, every single slight route change, turn, everything. And the stop signs. Yes, thank you, Mom, for reminding me. Those dark nights in the rain, driving back home after ref classes, are one of my favorite memories. Being a referee in practice, though, was hard, and I'd come home quite discouraged after a game, being shouted at by all parents and players. It's not easy for a 16-year-old who was usually the only woman on the field, but he would always walk through what I was worried I got wrong and what I called right, and taught me to stand up and make the tough calls and stick with them. Because I knew the laws, it was the right call, and I was always fair. Because of this, I worked on brokerage trading floors in New York, Hong Kong, and London, and those lessons of being the only woman in the room and still standing up, sticking to the right call, handling the pressure of people not agreeing with you, always calling it fair, even if it's unpopular, is the core of how I approach work. My all-time favorite memory of Dad, though, was at the 2006 World Cup, as I organized Mom and Dad's trip to Germany and scored tickets to all the USA matches. We were in the second row of the USA section for the USA versus Italy match. After the end of the national anthem, he just turned to me and said, "Thanks." It meant the world to him that his country, playing his sport, had that kind of support and that he had been there to see it. But really, it's I who should say thanks for being an amazing dad, supportive, kind, fair, honest, hardworking, but also a bit goofy and fun. He instilled the values of hard work, lifelong learning, fairness, respect for all, giving it a go, putting your best into it, and to have fun in life. He wanted to make sure that everyone loved soccer and life. He was always positive and encouraging, and every letter would end, "and we go on," and so we shall.
Talk about a hard act to follow. Jeez, thanks. Thanks, Erica and Britt. I'm going to take an opportunity to say a couple things as well. Again, I'm Len's nephew. I spent my life coming down from Maine, where I grew up, to visit Len and Eleanor, Erica and Britt for holidays, family vacations, soccer camps. And every time we came, there was a theme. Len was really good at humility. Let's break the ice. Let's get everyone comfortable. Anytime I brought friends over to 34th place, there was this photo album upstairs, and I knew when he was going for it. And I'd say, "Len, yeah, you don't need to bring that out." Yeah, our family, Len and Eleanor's family, yeah, we went camping a lot together in Maine and Canada. It was cold there. And I was outside getting hosed down at a spigot buck naked. And someone thought it was a good idea to take a photo of me naked at a spigot, and Len thought it was a great idea to share that with everyone I brought over to 34th place. Thank you, Len. Thank you for that humility. I learned a lesson each time. But we played soccer at Hearst. We played soccer at the old St. Albans fields whenever I was in town, and then I decided to come to DC for American University and live there permanently, and I did. And Len said, "You ought to coach." I said, "Coach? Okay." And he said, "Yeah, you can make money." I said, "Oh, money? Yeah, okay. Let's do it. I'll coach." And I immediately started getting into coaching courses and started coaching. But what was interesting at that time was I was in college, and college kids like what? They like food. And you could eat well at 34th place. You could eat well. Anyone that's eaten over at Len and Eleanor's house, and Eleanor was in charge of cooking, you ate very well. But I would tell my college friends, "Listen, you love soccer. I'm going to promise you a good meal, but you love soccer. In fact, you play soccer. Actually, come to think of it, you are a midfielder. You remember that tonight, okay? That's the price of admission for this meal." And people were lining up to get into that invitation, I swear. So I was putting my thoughts together and thinking, what do I say about Len? He's been a part of my life since I was born. And I started writing it out, thinking this will help. And I put little subheadings. And I swear to you, there was a subheading for COACH. I'm not kidding. He's up there. He's saying something because it spelled coach. So I said, "What? No. It was late. I was tired. It spelled coach." So I'm going to take you through something real quick. C, coach. Len was a coach. His granddaughters call him coach. If anyone had the pleasure, as I did, to take one of his coaching courses, and I know there's many here who have and who have helped him deliver those courses, you got something special. You did not get the typical USSF coaching license. You got 80 years of history of the game of soccer. 80 plus years. You got all of his time on the sideline, all of those lessons learned imparted on you. You were a better coach because of it. You knew where the game had come from. You knew where you were going to go with the game. But what I never admitted to Len was I was so sore. Because he would tell me, hey, Ian, Toto, come out here. You guys are young. Yeah, we were in our 20s. You guys can do the demos. It's like, okay, Len, sure. And he'd have us doing drills for hours in front of these soccer dads who were trying to learn the game. And I never admitted to Len that I was sore. You know why? Because Len was in his 60s back then. Len was still doing bicycle kicks in the courses. And I was sore because I was kicking a ball back and forth with Toto. So I couldn't admit to him that I was actually sore. But if anyone had the pleasure of getting coached by Len, you were a better coach because of it. And I think what I saw with Len was on the sidelines of the rec league, most important rec league in the area, thanks to Len. He would go up to coaches who came up in baseball and football, who would be yelling. They'd be yelling at the kids, yelling directions, yelling instructions. They were all over he would diffuse and distract. He would grab that coach and have a conversation. 10 minutes would go by and he would say, hey, look, the kids are all right. You haven't been coaching for 10 minutes and they're learning from the game. That was Len's philosophy. He stuck to it and he was absolutely right about it. The other thing I loved was going to DC United with Len. If anyone has been to DC United, Clark, I'm looking at you. You sat near, you were from inception, season ticket holders. Len was an institution. You didn't get to watch much of the game, but you knew that going into it. You got to meet everyone he had an impact on. They were players, current and former. They were parents. They were administrators. They were DC United officials. They were former pros coming up to pay respect and say hi and chat with Len. But don't worry, he was watching the game because after those games, he would send notes to Ranjan. He would send notes to Benny Olsen. He would send notes to Steve Goff at the post. And he'd say, yeah, so this is my take on the game. So he was watching, one eye on the game, one eye on the social. It was an amazing thing to see. So if anyone has benefited from those, cherish those moments, those were special. So that's the C in coach. I'll be quicker on the rest. Oh, he was an Oliver. And for those of you who know Olivers, we're a particular breed. We know our history. Len knew his history. We're proud. We are social beings, and we tell a lot of stories, most of which are true. But I will cherish the moments where my dad, Len's twin brother, and my uncle would sit across the table, 34th place, bantering, the twin banter, telling stories again and again and again. They would tell them so often that we felt like we were there. And that's magic. That is magic. I will miss that. So that's Len the Oliver. The A stands for ambassador. Len was an ambassador, a consummate ambassador. Always looking for an opportunity to tell people where we came from, what the history of the game of soccer was. It wasn't just soccer. It was community organizing, organized labor, study circles, humanities. That was Len, always the coach, always the ambassador. He kept, some of you know this, he kept a little piece of paper in his pocket. And every time he met an Ethiopian in DC, we had the largest population of Ethiopians outside of Ethiopia, he would pull it out, and it was what? It was a list of phrases in Amharic. Exactly. He wanted to be able to say, hello, what's your name? How you doing? Do you love soccer? And what position do you play? In his pocket, without a doubt. And I absolutely love that. The C, the other C in coach, COAC, convener and connector. Erwan, where are you? Erwan Lacrum and I met in 1993. Erwan was in France playing pro with Rennes. I was in France pretending to play pro in Saint-Jean-de-Brévelay, and we became close friends. And Erwan said to me, I want to coach at a soccer camp in the US. And I said, I got the guy. You have come to the right place, buddy. I got the guy. That next summer, Erwan and his teammate were in DC coaching at a soccer camp, staying on none other than Julie Kennedy's couch. Those of you who know DC Scores will know Julie Kennedy. She started that organization, which is now a nationwide organization, America Scores. They couch surfed with her back in the day because Len said, I know where you can stay as well. They coached, they came back the next year. Erwan went on to play at VCU, and now he's been here 28 years, has a beautiful family. Erwan is at Strikers Club. and he's leadership at Strikers Club, and he's been there for a long time now. And he coached, and I don't know, Sean Hinkle, did you make it? Did you make it in? Oh yeah, there you go. Misery loves company. Sean and I had surgery on our legs at the same day. I'm far ahead in my therapy. That's all right. Not a competition. He and I were doing a 3-legged race later. So Sean is now leadership at DC Scores. Sean was a player for Erewhon. What that tells you is Len was a connector. Len knew how to piece people together, put people together that should know each other. And that had lasting impact. And DC Scores is an organization that tells you that. They had a big event last night because they're the most important youth organization in DC. And Len was a big part of that early fabric. And then finally, I would just say the other H is Len was a historian. Len prided himself on the knowledge of the game. We would sit at that table, we would hear those stories about immigrant soccer. And my dad and Len played in the 30s, 40s, early 50s, Kensington and Philadelphia. And it was the Ukrainians we were playing against. It wasn't the club down the road, it was the Ukrainians, and they were tough. And we would hear these stories. And when I got older and had the privilege to travel with soccer myself, it all clicked. I said, these people came to the US for a better life. What did they bring with them? They brought their culture. What was the culture that there was common denominator, no matter what country they came from? It was soccer. They brought soccer to the US. Yes. Okay, go see Mama. Love it. Steal my thunder anytime you want. So I saw that firsthand. I said, that is the common denominator. All that history we heard around the table with the twins bantering about the early days in the game. All of this started well before Pele blessed our pitches with his talent. All of this started decades before, and Len is a testament to that. So Len is my uncle. He's an uncle to a lot of people. He's my dad's twin brother. I'll be back to close a little bit later, but this is what it needed to be. So without further ado, I'd like to invite my dad up to say a few words. My dad, Jim Oliver, is Len's twin. And in the time it takes to get up here, they were roommates. That's clever. That's clever. Never gets old. Never gets old. And who was the oldest? This guy. Yeah. Do you need this? You do, but don't yell at me. It's difficult for me today, recognizing that a twin brother that lived with me for all those years has passed. But it's also exciting to know that he had so many friends and so many people that appreciated him. Growing up in a tough ethnic neighborhood like we did in Kensington, having a twin brother, I recommend it. If you took on one, you had to take on two. And it was no question in anyone's mind in that neighborhood that we were together. We could disagree off camera, in the house. When we were in the neighborhood, we were united. And I think everyone respected that. I played soccer with Len and baseball with Len. And a tough competitor, you never want to see one like Len. Did not give an inch, never gave an inch, and never complained. You could be behind or ahead, he was playing hard. And at the end of the game, when we were all dragging ourselves off the field, Len still had the energy. I couldn't believe it. He never seemed to tire. He never seemed to quit. And the thing that I liked the best was that in ethnic soccer, once in a while, because we were playing in very tough situations, we would get in a fight. And I always remember one I got into. The next thing I know, the person I was fighting with flew down the field. Len had just tackled him.
and, and then that's how it was. You know, we were very loyal and very faithful to each other. And I grew up with a person that was a hard player, but a fair player. I think that's the great thing that Len had to coach about. As tough as he was, and no compromising on the field, he never committed fouls deliberately, never. And at the end of the game, he always congratulated, if they lost, and it was rare with the games Len played to lose, he would congratulate the other team. And I think the lessons he could give as a coach, I saw him growing up with. Here was a fair, honest, hardworking player that gave no, on the field, he gave no inch to anyone, no question about that. You wanted Len on your team. He was tough, he was energetic, he never quit. Ahead 2-0 or behind 2-0 didn't mean anything to Len. He was going to play the game hard. And I always appreciated that. And I know that growing up in the neighborhood that we grew up in, matter of fact, I'll even tell you a story I didn't mean to tell you. There was a fellow in our neighborhood called Moosey Myers. And thanks that you don't know him. He was a tough bully. And one day, Moosey made the mistake of taking a swing at me. And the next thing I know, Len was in a major community fight, street by street, with Moosey Myers. And then Moosey Myers finally cried and they hugged each other. So I think that Len was there. And if there was a situation that needed someone, Len was the someone. He was a support element. He was an element to encourage you to keep going on. And I think he gave that to the teams he coached. When Len played soccer, there was no slowing down from the moment he entered the field until he left. And if he lost, he was one of the first to always congratulate the other team. That was rare, by the way, I want to tell you. So I was proud to be his twin brother. And even though, you know, Moosey Myers suffered, I'd like to meet Moosey and explain to him that it's okay. We could be friends now. But I think the lesson is that if you grow up, you support each other. And I think Len gave that in coaching his teams. He indicated that you had to be supportive of your team. You had to play fair, you had to play hard, you had not any room to complain. You had to stay in the game and do the best you can. And Len always did. And fortunately for Len and his teams, that it always worked out in most cases as a favorable win. Len was a great player, but a fair player. One of the players that you would want to play with because he respected the other team up to the point he scored the goal. He had an incredible shot, by the way. If those of you who take free kicks, if Len was going to take a free kick, I would bet on it. Right away, I thought, okay, it's 1-0, it's going to be 2-0 in about 5 minutes once Len gets a hold of the ball. And I like the fact that even though it was very difficult, we were playing against ethnic teams. And there was a lot of, it was at the end of the Second World War. And you had all these deep feelings about teams you were playing against. And the fans that came out they were ready for war in many cases. And I think that, you know, we played at that point fairly. I always respect the fact that even though we were taught to play tough, and we did, Len was always a fair player. He never deliberately fouled anyone that I know of, and I played with him for years. I also want to say something about, you know, he loved soccer. And obviously he talked soccer all the time to everyone, to every waiter we received, he wanted to know if he played soccer. And if he did, what position did he play? And why did he quit? But I think the fact that Len recognized that the sport was important for young people, that was the important thing. And he really wanted to coach. He wanted to give what he knew the benefits of the sport was to young people. And he did it very well. I mean, those of you who went through Len's coaching, you realize that he not only knew the sport and loved the sport, but taught it in a way that respected the sport and respected those who played it. So I think that I feel very honored. I'm the twin brother. And I know growing up in a neighborhood where you needed a twin, believe me, and that if anything happened, you had someone by your side. Len was also a baseball player, for those of you who love baseball. We forget, it was always part of the team. I was the second baseman, he was the shortstop. I was the fullback, he was the left half. And so it went that way. But Len played baseball and played very well. And played on the Temple University. He was an outfielder in the Temple University team. And sometimes we forget that, even though we love soccer so much, we want to boost it. But Len was also a very good baseball player. But more than that, I think what I recognize is the sportsmanship behind it. Len, as tough as he was, and as aggressive as he played, was always fair. And I saw Len knock a guy down and then pick him up. Len's first thing was to put his hand out and help him get up. And I think that's what carried over to his coaching. So I'm proud to be his twin brother. I'm very thankful of you all being here today. That's quite an honor. And remember that when we coach, we have to be fair and build character. And I thought Len did the best job ever. Not just teaching the skills of the sport, which he knew well, but teaching the character that should come with it. So thank you very much for being here.
Dad, you still got it. You still got it, Dad. Amazing. It's my honor to welcome Helen Zabia up from NEH. Thank you.
Picture it, 1979. I meet Len Oliver, the special assistant to the chair of the National Endowment for the Humanities. The man responsible for my husband, you can't hear? Okay.
Sorry. I will have to try it again. Okay. Picture it. I meet Len Oliver, the special assistant to the chair of the National Endowment for the Humanities. The man responsible for my husband, Barry Miners, and I, moving from Seattle to Baltimore for a 10-month contract to create an original theater piece from 7,000 pages of oral histories. These 7,000 pages were put together, and we were to direct a multiracial theater company that would share the stories that were collected. Why bring Barry and me from Seattle? Well, in 1979, there were no directors in DC and Baltimore who worked with multiracial companies. There were Black directors who worked with Black actors, and there were white directors who worked with white actors. However, Barry and I had experience working with our multiracial company in Seattle. We had Asian, Hispanic, Black, and white actors. Well, we were 4 white actors and 2 Black actors. In those days, in 1979, it was a political statement for the 6 of us to walk into a restaurant and sit down at the same table together, or to arrive at a venue and unload the truck and set up the stage in the venue. We received a lot of stares. Well, Len was a visionary. He wanted to hear the real voices of real people. Len was full of life, and he wanted to share it. Now, most of you know Zen's zest for life through soccer, but I knew him through his love of the humanities and democracy. He was a believer in every man, that people from all walks of life could be lifelong learners. He was an advocate of the Swedish study circles that offer a way for adults to learn together in small study groups. As you know, many of you do, that he actually wrote a book about it. Study circles, coming together for personal growth and social change. That was in September of 1987 that it was published. It was a critique of Swedish study circles used to demonstrate how they can work for citizen understanding and trade union democracy in the US. He was always an optimist about the human condition, our ability to become better. It was Monsignor Gino Baroni at the National Center for Urban Ethnic Affairs who funded the original oral histories that were done in Little Italy in Baltimore for the 1976 bicentennial. It was that success that inspired the creation of the Baltimore Neighborhood Heritage Project at the University of Baltimore, which in turn proposed going into 5 areas of Baltimore, 16 neighborhoods in all, to obtain oral histories of those people who were in their 70s and 80s. This was in 1978, right? So those people were from the turn of the century, the last century. It was Len Oliver who recommended funding the project, which included traditional European neighborhoods, as well as the Jewish and African American communities. That was pretty different in those days. And of all those 7,000 pages of oral histories, they are still available in acid-free boxes at the University of Baltimore Library. But Ted Durr, the director of the project, and Len weren't satisfied with the oral histories existing in a library for academics to study. They envisioned those stories coming to life on the stage, and Len recommended that the humanities fund this project. It was truly unprecedented. More than 10 years later, Ken Burns' Civil War documentary became a big hit. It used the words of ordinary people written in letters to loved ones. But in the 1970s, it was controversial. You should have heard the arguments that historians made about how you cannot trust the memories of working people. Well, Len knew better, and we are all better as a result of his vision. You know that twinkle in his eye, Len's eye, when he was thoroughly delighted in what we had done with him before him, when he saw what was happening before him. Whenever he was in the audience, you could see that twinkle in his eye all the way from the stage. Baltimore Voices went on to present hundreds of performances around Baltimore in the very neighborhoods from where the stories were gathered, but also at national conferences all around the country. It was incredible to hear the audiences in each neighborhood proclaim, "I didn't know that those people experienced the same things we did during the Depression and World War II." You can substitute Jewish, Black, German for those people. It really did bring people together. Baltimore Voices inspired others to gather oral histories in their communities, including John Eaton School, where Cleveland Park Voices was created and performed in the community in Len and Eleanor's neighborhood. And my own mother in Seattle, Washington, gathered oral histories of those who remembered the Hungarian Revolution of 1956 and created Hungary Remembered, performing it at Seattle University in 1986 in honor of the 30th anniversary of the failed revolt. Today, we accept oral documentation to be an integral part of our histories. Most of us accept the fact that different cultures express themselves differently. But we also accept that we all experience the same human feelings of joy, pain, suffering, and love. It is love, most of all, we share, and that is Len's legacy.
It's Beautiful, thank you very much. It is now my honor to introduce John Koskinen to say a few words. You want to come up here? Yeah.
Thanks very much. I am touched and honored to have been asked to talk a little about Len, a longtime friend of mine in soccer and otherwise. Actually, somebody asked me recently, well, how'd you get to know Len? And it was a sort of straightforward story. I had, over the time when my children were playing soccer, I was a football player when I was a kid, but I adopted soccer when my wife enrolled my son in MSI when he was 6. And so being an enthusiast and a sports junkie, I started showing up for games, and then I started showing up for practices, and then the coach said, our assistant coach left, how would you like to be the assistant coach? And I thought, well, I don't know a lot about the game, and it turned out that the Bethesda Soccer Club was offering coaching lessons, and the next thing I knew, I was the assistant coach of my son's team, and then my daughter, who was 2 years younger than he was, I became the assistant coach of her team. So her team had, when they were younger, at age 6 and 8, had become the Bethesda Peppers. And as they became a travel team, they kept the name to the consternation of Brad Roos, who was their coach. He thought they ought to have some more aggressive name. Peppers didn't seem very exciting to him. But they got to be a very good team. They won the state cup a couple of times. And I dutifully tagged along as the assistant coach. And so Britt joined the famous Peppers one year to our delight. And she was both a wonderful person and a great player. And Len was a little like me. He would show up at practices once in a while, as well as the games. And one day I was chatting with Britt and showing her that if you want to make a really good kick, you need to lock your ankle. And as I said that, Len leaned over and said, how do you know that? And that question reflected the fact he knew I was not a really great soccer player. And as he said, he knew that instinctively as a player, but he'd never quite known how to articulate it. So he was mystified as how this non-soccer player knew anything in detail about the game. So I noted to him that the U.S. Soccer Federation had coaching courses at the state level, the famous FEND licenses, and then the CBNA at the national level. And I had just finished the C course. It was the one time anybody who's taken a national course, or even the local one, but the national ones, they give you tests. If you get go to the FEND and put in the time, you'll get, and show any competence at all, you'll get the license. But at the national level, they're really serious about it. And it's like a CPA exam. There are 5 elements to it. And it's organization, it's health, psychology, and then there's the playing performance. So I figured could pass 4 of the 5. Well, when I got to playing, that was going to be a challenge. I had signed up and played for a few seasons in an over 35 league. And having been a football player, I could punt or volley a soccer ball, that was it. And having been reasonably successful in high school, college, and law school, I had never taken an exam where all I wanted to do was pass. And so I think they took sympathy on me. Ultimately, they didn't tell you anything. They mailed you this famous envelope like getting admitted. And so it turned out I had passed, and I'd gotten my C license with a little note that basically gracefully said, don't come back for a B license. So that was my background. So Len said, how do you know that? And I said, well, there's wonderful courses. Coaching really is like teaching. You have a lesson plan, they tell you how to do that, and it's a wonderful way to experience it. Next thing I know, Len has trundled off to a national course, obviously, and I told him I knew a little about his background. This is about 35 years ago. A little about his background. I said, listen, you don't have to bother with the state courses. You'd be great getting national licenses. And I didn't hear any more think about it until later I saw Len, and he had actually gone to the national coaching courses, and of course knew all sorts of people. Gene Chiserwitz was in charge of organizing it, and Gene looked at him and said, Lenny, what are you doing here? And Len explained, no, I'm here. I'm going to want to really be a coach and learn to coach better youth soccer coaches. And of course, he promptly went right through the whole thing, got an A license, which is the license for coaches who want to be coaches of professional or college teams. And so through the years, we kept up with each other. And it turned out that I lost track, but when people were reviewing Len's life, the number I thought was over 1,000. It turns out the number is over 5,000 coaches who benefited from Len's knowledge of and enthusiasm and commitment to the game. And when you think about that, if you think of those 5,000 coaches, and if each of them had 20 players on their one team, you're talking about 100,000 players in this area who directly benefited from Len's knowledge, his enthusiasm, his commitment to the game. And when you think about legacies, one legacy is you look at the people around this room and the various aspects of their lives that Len touched. You also think about the organizations. A lot of times, Len wasn't pushy about it, didn't brag about it, but any organization he touched prospered. I chaired the '94 bid and host committee for the World Cup in Washington. Len became an active participant. Our first grant, our deal was if we made any money, we would put it back into the game. And our first grant was the DC Scores, and Julie Kennedy, as you heard about. And Len immediately adopted DC Scores and supported it through the years. He also became involved. Bill Willis is here and going to follow me and talk about Stoddard. He became involved in Stoddard. Len never became just involved in it. Len became a participant, an organizer of it, a supporter of it. And he became a major force in Stoddard and its growth from the stage when it had, when I recall, 500 kids, and now it's got several thousand. He helped support and develop and organize the Virginia DC Soccer Hall of Fame. And again, was on the board, recruited people, recruited players, wanted to give as much visibility to the game as he could. And through it all, what impressed me as much as anything was how humble he was about his background, in the sense he never talked about it. He never bragged about it. He never, when I was talking to me about how'd you know that, said, I was on the national teams and I played for years and I know a lot about the game. He never said that to me ever. And he was that way about everything. He was humble. He was low key. As I've been delighted with the stories about his family. He loved people. He wanted to talk about you. He didn't want to talk about himself. He wanted to know more about who you were, where you came from, what your enthusiasms were, and he would share those with you. And so when you step back, it really is remarkable to think about not only those coaches that he impacted, not only are those over 100,000, probably 150,000 kids he impacted, or all of those organizations. It's accumulation of it in one man's life that is stunning and impressive. And so we'll miss him. The game of soccer will miss him, but we'll never forget it.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much. Next up, I'd like to bring up Bill Willis, a longtime soccer colleague of Len's. Thank you. I'm very honored to be here today to celebrate Len's life. Len and I met in 1992 on the board of DC Stoddard Soccer, now the DC Soccer Club. I had just been appointed the commissioner of the new midget division. When we met, Len asked, "Did you play soccer?" I replied, "No, but I played football in high school." Although Len did look a little disappointed, he welcomed me anyway. We went on to work together for many years, first in Stoddard Soccer on the board. Later, along with Diana Ditto and I, we managed two of Len's teams until about 2007. And Len and I also worked together on the Virginia DC Soccer Hall of Fame. When our DC Stoddard midget division was getting organized, and Len found out that many of the coaches who were parents had not played soccer, he created a very simple coaches course to try to help our group understand the game. That was the first time I understood how Len not only was a real soccer presence in the club, but was quite a teacher and promoter of soccer. He never missed a chance to help our coaches, to invite them to his more advanced courses, and ultimately it was mandatory for our coaches at Stoddard to hold coaching licenses. Many of those 5,000 coaches that we've heard about today that Lynn trained would come to see him at RFK, as Ian had talked about. I sat with Lynn a few times, and you couldn't watch the match. They would come by to Lynn and say hi, to thank him, to take pictures with him. But it was close to impossible to focus on the match if you sat with Lynn, as I did a few times. Once at RFK, one of the coaches brought his young girls team by to meet Lynn. Each one of those young ladies asked Lynn for his autograph. It made his day. He talked to us about it for weeks. In the early 90s, Lynn was the person at Stoddard who was the real soccer person due to his experience and passion for the sport. He helped make BC Stoddard a more vital and more competitive youth soccer organization. Whether it was recreational soccer or more competitive travel soccer, Lynn was instrumental in training and teaching the coaches and players as well. Stoddard created an annual award entitled the Lynn Oliver Coach of the Year Award, given to the coach who exhibited the highest coaching ideals. In the early and mid-90s, BC Stoddard was a rather small but growing organization, run solely by volunteers and had only a couple of part-time employees. After the 1994 World Cup, which John bought, BC Stoddard enjoyed a tremendous growth in membership, almost doubling in size to around 4,000 players. Lynn was instrumental in training the coaches for the expansion and for the increase in travel level teams. Lynn was also our interface and connection to the larger soccer community in the city, states, and the national levels. He knew basically everyone in the sport. Lynn always believed that the key to real growth of soccer in America was to develop interest in the inner city. He was a supporter from BC Scores from the beginning, as was Stoddard, and he tried to spread soccer to the various parts of BC as much as possible. He took teams to many regional youth tournaments, as well as the National Soccer Hall of Fame summer tournament when it was in Oneonta, New York. His team won many of the tournaments. The exact number of teams or wins that Lynn's teams enjoyed is probably not known, but it's surely in the many hundreds. His concern, however, was always, how did you play, not did you win? In the pre-match huddle, Lynn would lead the team in a chant that ended, pass me the ball so I can get the most. When you ask any of Lynn's players from those times if they remember the chant, I would expect they could recall it from memory. And a couple of them are here today. Also, the teams, players and parents, had great camaraderie and lasting friendships were created. Lynn helped some of the high school players get to college. Some of them received college scholarships and offers to play. And several played in college and some beyond. Lynn enjoyed coaching high school age players from around the world and ended in DC and landed on some of his teams. He trained youth coaches from many countries in DC when they were in DC. He also organized donations of jerseys and equipment to be sent to developing countries. Lynn was always trying to increase everyone's confidence in themselves individually and in their teammates. This was something that was just in Lynn's nature. He tried to make everyone in every situation better as we all move forward. This was recently confirmed by Donna Deaton, who stated, Lynn had an uncanny ability to elevate the level and confidence of people. He was a patient, knowledgeable, encouraging teacher. When I started working at BC Stoddard, I was hired as a part-time administrative assistant to the board. Lynn began referring to me as the lead administrator and it stuck. He was good at promoting the folks in his orbit as well as the game he loved. We were incredibly lucky to have had him in our corner. Lynn wrote a detailed history of BC Stoddard League a few years ago, which documented its beginnings in 1977. Lynn, as you all know, stationed there. The following is a brief translation from a German newspaper in 1966. I can't vouch for who actually did the translation, but here it goes. There were very few GIs who played soccer on a German league team during their service. But there was no one who earned so many honors and sympathies when he had to leave Germany than Lynn Oliver. Lynn Oliver was the head and soul of the team, simply a perfect sportsman. Also, Lynn was the founder of the Virginia DC Soccer Hall of Fame in 2001. The Hall of Fame holds an annual fundraising golf tournament. This year's tournament was held last week, and we unveiled the new Founders Cup trophy, honoring Lynn and perpetuating his memory through future golf tournaments. The winning team this year will receive a smaller Founders Cup, and the original Master Founders Cup will be engraved each year with the winners and held by the Hall of Fame. The inaugural Cup winners were a team headed by Keith Tabachnik with Bill Ruvo and two U.S. Soccer Hall of Famers, Bruce Murray and Jaime Moreno. How fitting. Lynn and I enjoyed a very good friendship over the years. He was very thoughtful and sincere and will be missed by the soccer community as well as the many, many friends who made a long life journey. May Lynn's memory be a blessing. Our condolences go out to Eleanor, Brett, Erica, and the entire family.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you very much. Love to invite up Khalid Hamami from DC Soccer Club, formerly DC Stoddard. Someone I had the pleasure of coaching with and under for many years.
Thank you, everybody. I'm actually here in place of Karen Kalser, who was supposed to be presenting, and she happens to be my wife. But unfortunately, she can't be here today for family reasons. So she gave me the speech to read. But before I go and read the speech, Karen coached soccer way before me, and she was one of the people that brought me into coaching into DC Stoddard. That's how I met Len. So Len and I have a long history through Karen. So I'll start with a small story that when I first started coaching back in the day, I took my D license with Len, who was leading, and Karen was one of the instructors. So when I got the grouping, I was in her group. So I went to Len and said, Len, can you move me to a different group? And he said, why? I said, I don't think I should be in Karen's group. He said, why? I said, what if I don't pass? He says, he looks at me and he goes, well, if you don't pass, you're in trouble regardless of who your instructor is. So I said, okay, so he moved me from her group into a different group, but that was what Len was. He took me at the end and started talking to me about no matter who your instructor is or the opponent is or whoever you're dealing with, you've got to be able to deal with it because that's what coaches and people do. Whatever the situation is, you deal with it. So we all learn a lot as a people and as a club that I represent now. So with that, I'm gonna read Karen's, I'm gonna do the best I can with it. So she goes, Len was a very special person to me, and I'm sure to all of you. He tremendously influenced my life as a coach and instructor, as a leader, and as a person. He always supported our club staff. I so appreciate all the ways he supported my personal growth on and off the field. He constantly but gently pushed us toward learning and growing. He brought me into VYSA Coaching Ed, where he modeled positive leading. These experiences became a wonderful opportunity to collaborate with and learn from him. He also promoted staff involvement with wonderful soccer organizations like NCSAA, now United Soccer Coaches, where he sought to provide opportunities for participation and learning in so many ways. He motivated us to create better versions of ourselves. He was an amazing example of genuine love and acceptance of people from all backgrounds and all areas of the world. He generously shared his love of the game and his own experiences that made coaching education They made each day fun and fulfilling from both club staff and coaching course candidates' perspectives. He was so proud of the growth of the many staff coaches who regularly work towards national licenses and many who attained the U.S. Soccer A license. He was an advocate for achievement of both student athletes and coaches. He was also wonderful with little ones and parents. It's incredible to think about the amount of people who have been positively influenced by him. Youth teams and kids he coached directly, club colleagues who created a better environment for both kids and parents thanks to him. Coaches from all over the courses he taught, and then passing Len's love of the game down to the kids they coach. All he met and knew through his sport. My favorite time with Len, though, was not in soccer. It was at the Christmas holiday season. We would visit, catch up, enjoy the spirit of the holidays with gingerbread house and fresh baked bread. We already miss Len, but we look forward to continuing the holiday tradition with Eleanor. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Khalid. So last, but most importantly, my aunt, Eleanor. You've got the gear. Sean's got the gear too.
Speech. Okay. If I should disappear, it's because I have to sit down. Okay. I like it. Yeah. Len was not a man of faith. In a conventional sense. That's why we're here. Okay. All right. Now, gee, I can't even read this. Okay. He didn't believe in any netherworld, not for him. Let's be positive. Yes, if there was an afterlife, it's right now, it's right here, it's on our streets, it's in our everyday lives. It's what you do for others, what you say to others, what you share with others. If you live on, it's through what you do to make the world a better place. That was Len's philosophy, and I think he lived it, and he lived it well. It was never his intention to live forever. He just wanted to do some good while he was here. And in the end, he donated his brain to the Boston University Concussion Research Study in the hopes of hanging around a little longer, I think. Anyway, and of making the sport a safer place, making it a safe, what's wrong with me? Okay, at all levels for all ages. And I think at the end of this study, there will be a lot of changes in a lot of sports because of what they're finding out from athletes. And Len could not be here because he's at work in Boston today. As a kid in Kensington, in the ethnic blue-collar neighborhoods of Northeast Philadelphia that he loved so well, Len learned pretty much everything he needed to know about playing soccer and about everything else. You play hard, but you played fair. And I think I'm getting kind of repetitive. That's been brought up a number of times today. And get your thumb out of it, please. And in the end, you helped each other off the field. In the streets with his twin brother Jim and a raft of Oliver cousins, I never did keep them all. They were all named Johnny and Tommy and Big Tommy and Little Tommy and Fat Tommy and I don't know what now. And all these cousins, all they needed was a ball. The rest was all fun. They played until the street lights came on, and it was great. It was sublime. Who could want anything more? And they became very good soccer players. Life took him through calculus, Spanish 4, and worse. A BS in accounting, and the military. Through all of this, soccer filled his day with fun and to keep life on God's green pitch productive. It offered something to look forward to, something to work toward, something else to win, something else to share with friends, family, and teammates. It was a great life, and he wanted to pass that on to everyone he met. Just standing in line at a grocery store, and this was also brought up earlier today, he would turn to a young man standing behind him and he said, "You look a soccer player. You play soccer?" Usually they didn't, and if the answer was no, he didn't hear it. Great sport. It's the world sport, you know. I've been playing it all my life. Oh, it's too and it's big. You'd think I could read it, you know? Okay. The oral history of Len's soccer career would continue while he pitched the virtues of the sport. He wanted everyone to know how great the game was, and he wanted every kid to play it. Things really got serious when he had children of his own. They were girls, a minor detail. They needed only minor adjusting, but they needed more than a soccer team. They needed food to keep them healthy, and a roof over their heads. This was where the Len Oliver that we know, the three of us know, this is where the best emerged. When he was terminated from the National Endowment for the Humanities and other civil service jobs seemed elusive, he began taking a little contract here, a small job there, cobbling together a monthly income. He got a letterhead, engraved, not just printed, Oliver Associates. Oliver Associates was born, and he never looked back. He figured out how much money it would take to keep this family of four afloat, the mortgage paid by working for 11 months, so out of 11 months out of the year, so we could continue taking our 1 month vacation every summer and still afford soccer cleats for the growing feet. How many clients per month? Question mark. At how many hours per client? At how many dollars per hour? Somehow we made it through the next 20 years and all the college tuition. And we're not talking UDC. Although every time they brought a less than adequate grade home, we sort of said, UDC for you, kiddo. And every summer we would take that vacation, driving off to some distant shore like Newfoundland. You know, they pronounce it Newfoundland, up in Newfoundland. Newfoundland. We had a trunk full of camping gear, and once we returned home via Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, and the new Mackinac Bridge, Doesn't everyone drive, who's going south, drive north and west first? It's not exactly a direct route, but these were our vacations, never the shortest distance between 2 points. The challenge, getting back on time for the opening of school on the Tuesday after Labor Day. That was it. That's all. That was the only deciding factor. We had no plan. We had no itinerary, really. Anyway, the month was well spent. We always made it back. Len was the constant example with few words said about doing your best. Constant encouragement to try a little harder. Isn't there something? Take a harder math class. Always be on time. That was the one. And always play soccer. These were his guidelines. Sitting before me today are 2 young women, one is standing here, one is sitting here, who have so far met every trial life has thrown at them. They are leading productive, self-sufficient lives. What more could he have hoped for? He was very proud of his girls. Well, in addition, there were all those kids he coached. Over the years, what he shared with his daughters, he also shared with every kid he ever met. If they went out into the world and tried a little harder, but always played fair, he knew they would succeed and he would be pleased. He will never know that from here on, many more children in DC will have that opportunity to play soccer, to be inspired, to give their best, and to eventually succeed. I think I'll leave it there. Many thanks to all of you. All of you who make this possible over the coming years. It fills my heart to know that his spirit will linger over the playing fields of this city for a long, long time to come. He's still coming, he's still going to inspire generations of young athletes. And that simply blows my mind. I mean, thank you all, and thank you, and thank you for coming. I'm glad you're here. And we're going to have a good time.
So we're gonna watch a very quick video. Just a quick we're gonna watch a quick 3-minute video, and then I will say just a few quick things to close. Hold your hand there high, and don't be afraid of your God. I'll be rain, I'll be storm. There's a golden sky and the sweet silver song of your God. Walk on through the rain, walk on
for your dreams be times I'm grown. Walk on, with all in your heart. I will with all in your heart. I will
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for sticking through this program. You heard what a rich life Len had. So a couple quick housekeeping items. Please eat some food. Please stick around for the 3 o'clock U.S. England game. Please mix and mingle, but please do me a favor and listen to these numbers. So Len impacted people we can't even count. Study circles, organized labor, humanities, obviously soccer. 5,000 coaches from 100 countries. We talked about the numbers at 100,000, is it more? Kids impacted directly and indirectly. 88 years of a life really well lived. 60 years of an amazing marriage to my Aunt Eleanor. 2 beautiful cousins, his daughters, and 2 granddaughters as well. And 1 love for humanity and everything that ties us together, in particular soccer, but everything else that ties us together. So for those of you who have ever been to 34th place for a meal, this is how we do it when we're celebrating something. This is for Len. Hip, 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 hip.
Thank you. If you all have stories about Dad you want to tell, share them on paper.
Thank you guys, everyone, for coming. I think he would have loved to have been here and loved to have heard us talk about him. Maybe not, because he'd probably ask you the questions.
We still want your stories. Email them to us or put them in the book back there. Anything. Just we'd love to hear how you all knew him and how you remember him. Thank you.
And yes, please take some food, have some drinks, stay. USA, England, USA. Sorry, it is at Wembley. We'll be on after this, and just come and say hi. Thank you.